was attacking, and this week I actually had three potential topics for today, and I chose Karpov play endgame because so far we were mainly checking middle games. Except there was one game where Karpov played against Kramnik, in this good knight versus bad bishop endgame, combined with the rook. So I was like, okay, we can check another game where Karpov is playing an endgame. And in a second, I'm going to add you in the classroom. And I'm going to show you one of my favorite endgame of Karpov. Your name is just simply Forky Chess, right?
With an underline between and
underline. Okay. Now I see it.
Oh, okay.
Because
Yeah.
on Twitch it's there is no underline. Yeah. I always mix it up. Okay. You're there, right?
Yeah, I am.
You're inside. Okay. You see the position.
Yeah, I do.
Awesome. Okay. So first of all, it's one of my favorite endgame, and it was played between Yubomir Yuboyevich and Anatoly Karpov. First of all, let's evaluate the position a little bit. Who's better? First of all, what do you think? And why?
I think the knight is again better than the bishop. But white has the d file for himself, a more centralized queen, maybe some potentials even to get maybe to h7 pawn grabbing. I don't know. But from that standpoint, I think white has a better queen and black has a better minor piece. I don't know. I think it's probably in the balance. But I would prefer black, of course, because of the knight and the potential.
All right. Yeah. Well, yeah, we could say that at the first sight that okay, white should be better, right? Because of the space advantage, and because these pawns fixed on dark squares, which can be a potential, targets, and not only these pawns are fixed on dark squares, but also these two guys. So somehow the bishop is getting behind our position. I mean, we will have huge struggle to protect these two guys here, because probably we cannot really deal with an f8 bishop. But right now, it's just it's not about happening. But the thing is, the bishop right now has no targets, and if we just make sure in the future that we will just keep it that way. So we will not allowing the bishop to come behind our position. This bishop will never find target. The other thing is if we are choosing the right pawn structure here, simply the knight will dominate the bishop. And also there is a principle which, especially in endgames, we are mainly talking about endgames because, of course, when 5 other pieces on the board, we can't really talk about this principle. But in endgames, queen and knight, especially against the queen and bishop, is always deadly. It's always such a strong combination. These two guys against these two guys is always very, very strong, because simply if these two guys find target, sometimes the same principle we can talk about the same principle as the opposite color bishops. So if this knight is moving and finding targets on the light squares, this bishop will not be able to protect any of those. So yeah, I mean, in my opinion, the position is probably equal. So objectively speaking, it has to be equal. In case of white's perfect play, it's equal. But the thing is, black cannot really lose it unless we are doing some major blunder. Black cannot really lose this, or let's say we are allowing everything what white desires. We can never really lose this game. How would you play here? Black is on turn, by the way.
Okay.
We need to find the plan. It's also not easy to make progress because whenever the queen just tries to get tries to find some target in the queen side or king side, immediately the queen is getting checks. So it's really difficult to and also you mentioned queen h7, which is a potential threat sometimes. So how would you deal with queen h7? First of all, this is the first question you have to answer.
Yeah, probably after queen h7, I can just play knight f5. Like if I allow it, then I think knight f5, and the queen is probably way offside. If he cannot get the g4
but it
right
can,
away.
like it can give check on g8, come to e8, and all of a sudden you always have to keep an eye on f7. So I mean, in general, I wouldn't allow queen h7. Maybe this is not like that big of a deal, but the problem is if you go knight f5, he will just play bishop f2, and then after g4, your knight is kind of trapped. But of course, you can play knight d4. It's still possible, but once once we exchange the bishop and knight down, your chances for a win basically just fades away. So in general, I wouldn't allow the queen to just getting behind our position. So first things first, I think we should be prophylactic here. Someone came up in the chat an interesting idea, but I have a problem with that. I don't want to say it out loud. We can talk about that later.
I mean, I don't want to play g6. I think this is way too weakening. So, but I don't see other way to prevent queen h7.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, knight f5, I think he has just g4, and I don't think I have done something.
What is wrong with g6?
Yeah, I mean,
so in what way? In what way is it weakening your pawns?
So I think firstly he just trades, and I mean, if I take back with the knight, I think my knight is doing absolutely nothing. And if I take with my pawn, then my knight is like fixated on the e7 square. The g6 is weak. e6 can also be probably a target in some near future. And also, I mean, f5 looks even worse because simply e takes on f6, I take back, and
no. F5 is never really the case. But so the question is, after g6, ag6, ag6, fg6. Actually, we placed one of our pawns on the light square, which is very important. The other thing is, by the way, g6 happened in the game. G6 was a brilliant move because you're just simply fixing your pawns in the light squares, and your pawn is simply playing h5 and knight f5. And from that point, I mean, look at our knight. Our knight is just like so cemented on f5. No one can really touch it. So let's say we go g6, ag, fg. I mean, maybe we created another pawn island. That's true. I give you that one. But after h5, knight f5, look at that knight.
And what if white plays a g4 here?
Just same, h5.
Yeah, but now h5 I think is even weaker than before. Okay, yeah, the knight is active.
I mean, this is the pass pawn, no? And look with the knight getting to f5, and we are starting to push. It can this pawn can also be a deflection for the queen. Just and it, basically, I mean, from now on, we don't even need to like move our queen so far away from our king to create any trouble. But Berislav, thank you so much for the raid. So we don't even have to like create immediate threats. I mean the pawn is doing itself by itself. So the main point here is this g6 was brilliant in many like angle. First of all, we are no longer placing our pawns on dark squares, which also we prevented queen h7. 1, 2. We are going to place our pawns on light squares. 3. Our knight couldn't really find outposts. What does a knight need? Outposts, right? Or blockade, like besides targets. But in general, if you just wanna place it somewhere, knight need an outpost. The only possible outpost here on the board is the f5 square. But the knight is always met by g4. Of course, maybe not immediate, but of course, in general, we don't wanna. If you wanna win the game, of course, if your goal is a draw, you can freely trade the knight for this bishop, and white will squeeze you a little bit because of the space advantage, and also we've seen these four going through passing through these four in some opponent games, some pushing g5, f5, and creating these opponent game motifs. But in general, the knight needs an outpost. How can you do that? You want to cement f5 square. How can you do that? You want to, you want to have this and then putting the knight on f5. This is all you need. In my opinion, the fact that the white had the pawn on h5, this was the reason why black can actually play this position on. If the pawn was on h2, I don't think this is possible, because the knight would never find an outpost. It always met by g4. But the thing is, after g6, black doesn't really have a good answer here. That's the problem for white, because if he goes g4, same thing. Okay, we still placed the pawn on. We still kept our pawn on a dark square, but this bishop can never really attack it. And even if it attacks it, I mean from an outpost, which is a light square, we are protecting our pawn. So this bishop will never win this pawn. Also, this pawn is on light square, so once we trade the queens off, no one can really. I mean, the king is just so far away from protecting this guy. So this is a scenario number one. Scenario number two, what happened in the game? It's just Ag6, Fg6, and after H5, Knight F5, voila, we have an outpost for the knight. And from now on, we can move on. Now we can play on, because all of a sudden we were worse on the king side. We had like space disadvantage on the king side, and white had so many pawn push on the king side. From now on, black is worse on the king side. I mean, white is worse on the king side because of this g6 plan. That's why it was so brilliant, in my opinion. Exactly, this has happened. G6 happened. Someone mentioned queen c6, queen d8, knight c8 in the chat. I'm not quite sure about that, because yeah, maybe we stabilized. We kind of stabilized. I'm not so sure if he gives this check right away. I think he's just going to push g4, and now I'm moving the queen away. Black will always run into these checks. So first you have to make sure that this check will never appear, like knight c8, and I don't know, even queen a. Okay, maybe these two checks are threatening. So check and take the pawn. But even queen d1 is possible. I'm not so sure. I think in general we cannot allow this. If white has to stabilize only one pawn here, which is g4. If he can manage to do that, we basically have no target. So this the queen alone will never beat these two. But if we just put the knight in a defensive stance, I mean, we need the knight to win the game. That's why this plan was so brilliant, because the knight found an outpost. So we will not win this game if we are using our knight to defend our king. This is not going to happen. The queen alone will never beat the queen and bishop. So we need the knight. How can we do that? It's only g6, nothing else. Okay, ag, fg. And in my opinion, white should have pushed g4. We can't really play h5 right away. I forgot to mention because of f5. Apparently, this is a very, very strong move. And the problem is, I mean, we can do this. I'm not saying h5 is a bad move, but white has this brilliant resource, which is f5. And in case of gf, this we cannot do, because we no longer have the outpost for the knight on f5. And look at that, white has a brilliant, such a strong pass pawn. In case of e takes f5, g takes, and bishop f4, and all of a sudden the bishop is going to be, strong. He will push e6 now. He has a passer as well. And, as we know from the principles, the knight with pass pawns are not very strong. A bishop with pass pawns always stronger. And now all of a sudden, I mean, he has potentials. In case of king b7, he can win our pawn, and also this guy will be strong later. And also the blockading square is on a dark square, so the bishop can't target this knight. So yeah, this f5 is such a strong resource, and we can play king c8. We can just prepare for h5. We can make this move anytime we want. So we don't have to be on rush. Ljubojevich basically made all the mistakes in the game what you shouldn't make in endgames. Okay, this move he made, it was still not that big of a deal, but in general, I don't like it. He played ace 3. I don't really like. I mean, of course, what does White want here? Of course, White desperately needs to find a counterplay. What was the point of ace 3?
Yeah, trying to push b4.
Yeah, exactly. So he tries to gain space on the queen side, and he tries to gain space. How can we deal with that? So here the key is to eliminate all the counterplay what White can generate. I don't think b4 we can allow. Why? Because if he goes b4, if we just leave it that way, we don't touch it, he will take on c5, and all of a sudden he can make a target. Because in terms of pawn fixment, there is no difference between in terms of like what color our pawns got fixed in case he goes b4 and takes on c5, or we just leave it like that because our pawns on dark squares. Either way. But after b takes c5, all of a sudden no one is protecting this guy. And it's on dark square. But right now our pawn chain, I mean the weakest, I mean our base of our pawn chain is this guy. And this guy cannot be targeted. So right now it doesn't really matter if it's on dark squares, because it's hard to do anything with this pawn chain. But all of a sudden, if he takes here, and then no one is supporting this guy, and all of a sudden this is a problem. If we take on b4, and then maybe he can create a pass pawn. I'm not so sure if he really want to give up on d5 square, but all of a sudden, I mean, he is gaining space. This is we cannot allow. So again, we have to be prophylactic here before we do anything on the king side. Always make sure that you eliminate the possible threats of your opponent, and then you can deal with your own plan. This was the mindset of Karpov, and also Peter Leko. And I guess many other super grandmasters. So what do you have in mind about preventing?
Yeah, I only see one way to physically stop. I mean, not even stop, but try to discourage White from playing b4. But I mean, I don't like playing a5 here because he still plays b4. I don't think that pawn sacrifice is something white really won't do. So after a3, I don't think that a5 is any good for black.
I mean, a5 is I think this is what happened in the game. That's the only way. That's the only way. So I mean, right now this pawn sacrifice, I don't think it's working. I mean, we just take it twice, no?
Yeah, and if he plays, for example, queen b1 to keep an eye on g6 again. The c4 is hanging.
Hanging.
Okay.
Yeah. And also now we have access to this square sometimes because of the pin, you know.
Okay. Fair
and
enough.
Also, if you go this way, we can stabilize with knight c6. You just, I mean, don't forget. Maybe you created. I mean, you opened up space around our king, which is obviously the bishop will get benefited by. But you also created a weakness, and it's on light square. So if I double attack it, you will not be able to protect it. If your king is king was still on c1. So I mean, this is not really happening now. This is not really happening now. And also, a4 is kind of a threat. Kind of a threat. You know, fixing his pawn structure. Because we can easily protect it by queen c6.
Yeah.
And, you know, even if he takes here, maybe we can make some deflection. And also the king will find like a safe square on a6 later, once everything is protected. And again, this guy is going to be on light square. So this is why Ljubojevich played b3, because this was a threat. This was a threat. He couldn't allow that. I'm not so sure if you checked my game from last week on Wednesday. I made a recap of Hungarian league, but basically, okay, it was in the opening, but it was the same same idea with a4 and just fixing opponents' pawn structure this way, and by that the pawns cannot be. I mean, they are on the same side. They basically same pawn island, but they are not connected. Because this c4 we just fix it that way, and the b3 pawn cannot protect c4 from that point. So this is very important. Of course, if opponent has a light square bishop, that's different story, because then let's say a bishop from c2 of course can target a4. But since the opponent has dark square bishop, I mean, it's again we are placing one pawn on light square, and on the other hand, and also we are like fixing his pawn structure, which is very important. That's why b3 happened. So with a5 we actually prevented b4 and also created a threat with a4. All right, now we have time. Of course, h5, because now we have this beautiful pawn structure against this pawn structure, and the knight will find such a strong outpost on f5. Of course, this position is objectively equal, but it's a very, very, very safe push for black, because black can never lose this game, never ever, and the knight is always stronger. We can consider this as a as a close position, because the bishop has no diagonals, right? Bishop has no space, and the knight can just jump around the board as many times as it wants. So yeah, because white has no target. We have queen and knight versus queen and bishop, and also because it's a close position. This is why it's a very safe push, and this is why maybe it's objectively an equal endgame, but practically speaking, it's very, very, very one-sided. All right, and now white played queen e4, knight f5, bishop f2. We need to find a plan. We did everything we could on the king side. So we fixed our pawn structure. We found a beautiful outpost for the knight. The bishop from now on it has to defend g3, and also which I didn't mention. So from now on, one piece always has to keep an eye on g3. That's very important because of the f5 knight, which means he can create, whenever he tries to, let's say, push b4, it will not be that effective, because he cannot really use both of his pieces, because g3 is just too much to give up on, because from that point our pawn is like so getting so close to being promoted. We have endgame experts in the chat. Love that. It's actually unbelievable how bad Yubojevic played this endgame. It's actually crazy. It's actually crazy. So Karpov made the move, and his next move was borderline terrible. And we are talking about a top 10 player back then. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. He made the major principal mistake in endgame. So now, I mean, right now you don't have to do magic. You can, Karpov's style was. I mentioned this many times. He always, whenever he, he had a long-term plan, he didn't try to, make it happen right away. You can go in baby steps. So first things first, what can you do? If you look at White's last move, I mean, not last move, but the move before, what he made. Really.
Queen e4, I believe. Or
yeah, Queen e4. Like, what?
Yeah, he gave me the d file.
Yes. So you can always start with those moves which cannot hurt, and it just makes a little improvement.
Yeah, probably I play Queen d7.
Yes, Queen d7. Queen d7, very nice move. Just controlling over the d file, and not allowing the king to just getting closer to the pawn. And by that, he can free the bishop and of course the king in this case is so much stronger, so much more useful defender, because he will probably need the bishop to create some counterplay. Alrighty, and now this move it blew my mind. I analyzed this endgame for hours back then, and no, this game is. Well, I mean, this move is just. It was so hard to believe that this actually happened. White played a4. It's just simply probably this was the worst move of the game. I don't want to take any credit from Ubojevic because he was a brilliant player. But he should have watched more Karpov games. I would say, and he would improve positionally like right away. I mean, by this a4 move, basically White just gave up on any sort of counterplay in the future, like right away, because he just fixed his pawn structure. Okay, maybe he fixed our pawn structure. That's true. Maybe he was afraid of a4. I'm pretty sure he had a good reason. So this we don't have to like picture this pawn move like, oh, I'm just making a move and okay, yeah, it was like eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and finally. I mean, it came to the pawn. It wasn't like that. I'm pretty sure he had a very good reason. Maybe he wanted to prevent a4, or I don't know. I'm pretty sure he had a good reason, but simply he really needed this break for later. Mm-hmm. If he is just he's well prepared for that. He would always need to break b4. He should have just keep his pawn structure that way. But with this a4, he just made sure that there will be no breaks in the king side. So black can actually leave the pawn structure like that. Okay, let's move on. He played a4, terrible move. He helped us out big time. For example, why was I'm just telling you one example why a4 was a terrible move. Let's say, all right, you know what? I'm not going to tell you. I will tell you a little bit later because I want you to find a plan now, and maybe you will come up with that plan, and we will talk about that.
Okay.
By the way, this session is going to be maybe a little bit longer because basically we would have like 20 minutes left, but this endgame requires so much more time. So
okay.
Is it okay if we just extend it with 15 minutes or something?
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
All right, because this endgame is just so complex, and only 1 hour for this endgame is just simply not enough to talk about everything. Okay. And I don't want to skip anything here. So
Great.
We have accessed another plan now, which was not available earlier, I think.
Yeah, I think it includes the idea of getting the knight closer to the king, probably to b4. Although my kingside pawns are still slightly weak.
Yeah, I don't think we should find a better square for the knight at all.
Okay.
I mean, f5 knight is just superior. It's in a way it's protecting g6 from the queen because it's just blocking the diagonal and attacking g3 and always keeping an eye on d4 square. So moving the knight to b4, it wouldn't be an improvement for us. I mean, okay, now it has a threat, but if you just move the bishop on e3, basically nothing really happened, right? So the knight, we cannot really find a better square for the knight than f5. It's just it's connected to another plan. Someone came up with an interesting plan. The thing is, yeah, I will answer it a little bit later.
Yeah, so now that the queen side is blocked, I think I wanna do something on the king side. So I think g5 and of course not now, but I'm firstly looking on how to prevent the queen from getting like any squares whatsoever. So maybe like the setup with the queen on d8 and the king on c7, so that but I don't
Very
know
nice.
in which order to do so, because if I play queen d8 right away, he has queen c7 perhaps, and if I play king c7, he has queen a8.
Very nice. Yes, Karpov played king c7 because queen
Okay.
a8 was losing. Just simply queen d3 and queen a7 check, king c8. That's a very important order because king d8 was running into queen b6 check, king c8. Now, I mean, he cannot take on b6 because we take the bishop with a check. So he can't do that. He just keeps checking us, and we're just going all the way to f7, and after 97 it's over.
Okay.
Because this is hanging and queen f1. So he couldn't do that. He couldn't do that. He can't play queen a8. He had to play. He played king c2, and now queen d8. And exactly this is the plan to push g5. This is the plan what Karpov played. But thanks to this a4, another plan became available, which is exchanging the queens. That becomes very, very interesting. And actually, queen b7 is, when I analyzed this, I remember, I'm not so sure where I saw this game at first, in which book. But I'm 100% sure they didn't mention queen b7. And actually, this is a draw, but it's like a nightmare for white. I think the reason why Karpov, first of all, the reason why Karpov didn't make the exchange because it was so hard to foresee everything in advance.
Yeah, of course.
So it was just impossible to calculate every single possible line. If you can make a 2-1, can you make a is there a 2-1 position, or is there like a crucial break on the king side at all? And the other reason I think why he didn't make this move is because he can do it anytime. Yeah. So even if he changed his mind, like two moves later, it will not change a thing, because the king in the meantime cannot really gain tempos because the d file is blocked from the king, from the white king. So we can just play king c7 first, but queen d8. We can just make any type of like queen moves, and if we change our mind, we can always make like return to the idea of exchanging queens. So basically, he didn't do it right away. What would happen if we played let's say king c2 or let's say queen b7 now? This is a nightmare for white, by the way. King b7, king d2, king c6. And why did it become available? Why? Because, of course, in order to win the game here, the only plan is bring the king here and push g5, right?
Yep.
But while the pawn was on a3, it was not possible. So let's say white plays king c2. If he trade, he just goes king c3. He can even wait, but he can just push b4 right away. But he can just wait. he can just wait the king to get here, and after b4 he can even win the game in some cases, because all of a sudden these guys can be targeted by b4 by breaking on the queen side. But after a4, it was not possible. That's why I didn't want to tell you earlier why a4 was a terrible move, because you might come up with this plan of queen b7, but very nicely you found another one. So basically, queen b7. Let's see how this endgame continues. King c6, king e2, king d7, king f3, king e7. And now let's say white can do like white has two defense here. One is g4 and one is wait. Just wait and not doing anything. Let's start with the waiting method. King f7, king f3, king g7, king e4, and now brilliant move. King h7. King f3, king h6, and this is the two-swung position. Why? Because white has basically only move here. White has only move. Bishop g1 is only move. Bishop e1 obviously is losing a pawn by knight d4, so he can't do that because the pawn is falling. He can't lose this guy. In some cases he can, but not here. For example, king g2, now g5, fg, king g5, king h3, and now knight d4 all of a sudden becomes available because the pawn endgame is winning. Bishop e3, we go back here. We go back to g6, g4, knight takes b3, king h4 takes, and now only one winning move. Only one winning move, knight a1. King f4, knight c2. We want to target this guy.
Yeah.
Bishop d2. Now it's very important. We can't play knight h3 because king e4, knight c4, and bishop c3, and the knight is trapped.
Oh wow!
And king d3 is coming. We can play knight h3, but king h5 with the the pawn endgame method. We just going king h5, and now this position is winning. I'm not going to show you everything because I analyze it like 20 more moves. This is winning. It is not very difficult to find the moves. So king g2 is losing, so he cannot really allow to push g. He can allow, but the king has to be here. So bishop g1. Bishop g1 is a draw. Now for some reason we don't push g5. Why is that? I'm just thinking. Maybe because he can go g4. Yeah. So why the king was here? Why the king was here and we push g5? He couldn't push g4. But if we push g5, I think he can just go g4. And now knight d4 is not available, of course, because he just takes everything, and we lose the pawn endgame. We don't have a passer. This knight d4 idea can only be possible if we have another passer, and the king cannot catch both. So knight d4 is not available. Knight h4, and he goes king g3, and now we don't have access to g takes f4. And we can, we are not getting in trouble, but knight g6, and actually we are getting in trouble, right? Wow. Yeah, we got in trouble, so we can get in trouble. So yeah, not g5, but h4. That's the huge point. And now white has only one move, which is g4. G takes h4 is losing because of king h5. And now we just take on h4, king h3, knight h4, and slowly we are coming closer, and eventually he cannot protect f2. Let's say bishop f2 now. I think we just simply take. The pawn game is always losing.
Yeah.
This is always losing because we just push g5, right? We put the king here, we push g5, and he will lose this guy. That's like easy. With hold on, we have to make no. So king g3, king e4, king g4, just to prevent f5.
Yeah.
And fg, king g5, and eventually he will lose this guy. So he can't really do that because the pawn endgame is always winning. That's why he can never really take our knight. A knight h4, king somewhere, and king g4, and slowly with the same method we will just win this guy most likely. So this is g takes h4 is losing. He must play g4. Knight d4 check. Now, what I mentioned, he cannot really take here because he cannot like catch both of the pawns. But he has king g2, knight b3, bishop e3, just to prevent knight d2.
Okay.
Knight d4 back. f5 check. King g7, bishop g5. This line is a little bit crazy. Gf, knight f5, king h3. Bishop, and all of a sudden now the bishop found target. Bishop, king h3, king g6, bishop d8, knight e3, bishop b6, knight c4, bishop c5, king f5. And apparently this is a draw. Unbelievable. Because this guy is fixed on the wrong square. e5, king g4, king d3, bishop e1, and we can't promote. That's crazy, right?
Yeah, I don't
draw.
know.
This is a draw. But this is the only way to make a draw. This is the only way to make a draw. So like Karpov made, I mean, objectively he made the right call. Maybe Ljubojevic would have lost this game, but this king march to the king side was never really a case if White didn't play a4. So this was a terrible move because now queen d7 it becomes interesting. But Black could. I mean, Karpov. I mean, by his instinct, he didn't go for this line because he couldn't just simply. The problem is, if he didn't go, like if he goes for it, there is no turning back. He can't undo it. But while the queen is on the board, there is always something what White can blunder. By the way, there was one more thing. So that this was the plan of not doing anything. Yeah, this was the waiting stuff. So there is also g4. There's also g4. Knight d4 check. King g3 only move. Knight b3. G takes, king h4. Knight d2, king h5. Now we can't allow king g6, because if take on c4, just king g6. And all of a sudden, bishop h4, king f7, f5 ideas are becoming, tricky. So king f7. King f7, bishop e3, knight c4, and bishop c1, and again the knight is trapped. It's crazy. Of course, you will never never find these moves. I mean, look, the knight is trapped. Of course, we are not losing because we can come back. Once we sacrifice this guy, we can't win the game. So this was one way. So both methods are draw, like pushing g4 and waiting on and just keeping the king here, but it's incredibly difficult to find. And yeah. All right, but Karpov played king c7. King c2. Queen d8. Now, in case of queen d3, queen a8 simply, and the queen is coming to g2, and all these squares, squares are covered, so the king cannot really penetrate, and we just go queen g2, and from that point it's a nightmare because even knight d4 becomes available once the bishop is pinned. So he can't allow that. So also is the same thing. The king has to cover all these squares, and the queen has to cover this diagonal. And White has to make sure that we can't really get behind his position. That's very important. That's why Ljubojevic just waited with king c1. And now g5. This is the plan you mentioned. very nicely. And now I think he has to take. If he allows this, this is even worse, because from now on we can create a passer with h4 anytime.
Okay.
And you know this looks so strong. He can't do that. So he has to eliminate as many materials from the board as he can. Fg5, queen takes g5, king c2. And now we must find a plan. We made huge progress. Because this is weak now. This is weak. Before this was the only pawn which was weak. But now we are targeting hitting this this pawn with the queen as well, not only with the knight. But this became also weak because we just eliminated or removed one of the key pawn from the pawn chain. Three plus one rule. Not that we haven't used the 3+1 rule so far, but again we can use it. So in order to make progress, we made the potential trades. We made the potential pawn structure changes. We made some PC improvements. We used all the elements of. We were being prophylactic as well. So we used with every single move we made so far, we kind of used the 3+1 rule. Again, we can use it.
I think knight e7 with the idea of placing the knight on g6 is very strong for black.
Or on e6, on c6.
Yeah, but I was slightly worried about queen h7 then.
Yeah, yeah. True.
I don't know.
True. Yeah. But maybe we can, like hide the king. Because he can only give checks on these squares. G7 is so maybe we can also place it here in some cases. But yeah, knight G6, also queen F5 idea. We can also trade queens. Yes, knight E7. So basically, we eliminated or removed or get rid of our potential weakness. So the knight no longer needs to be placed on F5, and like it can find a target on E5 as well. Yes, very nice. Knight E7. This is exactly what happened. Queen E7. Karpov played king D7. Surprisingly, queen G6 was a draw. Queen G6, knight G6, and it seems like black cannot protect E5. Bishop E3. Of course, we can't really take king D7. Of course, the pawn endgame is lost.
Yeah,
he can't do that because general principle of pawn games. We just make a deflection in the side, and we will take these two guys and we will just run to the other side. It's easy. With the pass pawn and pawn games are usually winning. So, but not bishop f4, but king d3, and knight e5, king e4, and this is a draw. This is a draw. Of course, we can still play on. It's not immediate draw, but the king just got got improved, and also we can't really move the king from here because all of a sudden the bishop will find target on b6, and in the meantime we can't really attack this guy, and we can't really advance our passer. So how do we make progress here? It's probably not possible. So Karpov, of course, saw that. So he didn't play queen g6. He played king d7, queen e4 back. White didn't have anything better. Now he wants queen b7 check, of course. Maybe queen b7 is not doing much because we have king e8. He can take because queen f5, queen f2. But in some cases it's threatening.
Yeah, I think we just go knight c6 here, and if maybe queen d3 is a problem.
Yeah, maybe. The question is queen f5 a move or not?
Oh, of course, queen f5 and take with the pawn, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And then we have access to king e6, and the king will take on e5. That's a huge thing. Or even if not the king takes, even if the knight takes, that's a huge difference. All of a sudden. Yeah, queen f5, brilliant move. Of course, white couldn't take, but if white takes, just e takes f5. This is losing. King gets to e6. Now it's different because in the previous line, the king could get to e4 while we had pawn on e6. But now it's different. The king cannot be improved to e4 because the pawn is on f5. That's huge. So white played queen d3 check. Question: where do you go? Do you take or what kind of king move you make?
I think I go to e8 with the king. And of course, if he takes, I still take back with the pawn. I'm quick enough to get to e6 in time, I believe. So yes, I think I play king e8 here.
King e8 is a draw because queen f5, e5, and bishop e3. In case of knight g6, he has e6 only move. And the problem with king d7, bishop g5 check. He has bishop d8. It turned out to be a draw. Probably white is just on time to catch the pawn, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Just on time. Annoying, but this is a draw. It was not. Of course, it's still very difficult. You can still take with knight, by the way, and continue this plan with king f. Not trying to get the king king to g4, but it's a draw. It's a draw. King d3, king f7, king e4, king g6. Not that the game was winning. I'm not saying the the game was king c6 was winning, but it was a better chance. And now it's actually crazy. Knight d4, bishop d4, c d4, king e4, king g5, king d4, king g4, and now b4. It's very important to play b4 now because if you start with b4, a b4, c5, b3, king d3, b takes c5, a5, c4, king d2, and c3. And this apparently this is winning Because king d3, b2, king c2, d3. So it's very important to take the pawn first. To take d4 first. And king g4, now b4. But this is this is a draw. King g3, c5, bc, bc, h4, c6, h3, c7, h2, c8, h1, and of course white cannot lose this if he takes on e6. But the problem is we just take a4 and yeah, it's still actually it's losable with black. So the pawn game is not winning. But the only way to make progress here is knight d4. There is no other way because the king is too strong. We didn't get this g5 square. So the only way is knight d4, but it's not winning. And also e takes f5 is not winning. And that's why Karpov played king c6, another brilliant move. Now of course white has to take. White has to take. Yeah. That's the only move because otherwise we take on e5. So queen takes f5 only move. E takes f5. Now knight g6 is threatening. With the same idea with this bishop e3, that the difference is,
yeah, the king is
not
defending.
C6, not on e8. Yeah. Bishop e3, knight g6, e6, king d6, and he tried the same thing with bishop g5. But that one was probably losing. What do you think? What is the draw here with white? I just flipped the board. There's only one draw here. There's only one draw here.
Yeah, maybe to bring the king closer. I don't see other resources.
No, I mean if you just simply try to bring the king closer, I mean he will play king a5 f4 and that's losing. That's losing. You can't allow the king here after it took e6. So the king, if the king gets to e5, it's losing immediately because of f4.
Therefore, probably it's e7 or what? I don't know.
No, it's king d3, king e6, and bishop f4. And the pawn game is a draw. That's the only move.
Oh.
That's the only way. And this is a draw.
Because yeah, I mean...
You can't break. You can't break here. And it's just... It's draw by one tempo. King g6 and king g2. King a6, king h2. And he will just wait here. This, of course, it's a draw, and he will just wait here. That's crazy. And actually, Lyuboyevich didn't find this. Didn't find his bishop f4 idea. That was the only draw. That was the only draw. He played bishop g5. The bishop g5. King takes e6. Wait a sec. Didn't we have the same position? The king on e8. Yeah.
Yeah, actually it's...
Hold on a sec. Maybe it was not bishop g5, bishop d8, the draw? Now I'm a little bit confused. What's going on? Wait a sec. It was not e6. It was not e6. It was not e6. Sorry, it was not e6. E6. By the way, knight f8, and it's over.
Oh, wow.
And just taking on e6, and you know, stopping bishop f4, bishop c7. Knight f8 is winning. It's it was bishop e3, knight g6, and now going to engine king d2. And knight e5, now bishop f4.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why White couldn't do the same. Maybe king e8 and king c6 was exactly the same actually. But somehow I remember also in the book they mentioned that king e8 was the wrong move. Yeah, okay. Now stock v17 is a little bit different. It's a little bit.
Yeah.
What the hell? King d7, bishop f4, king e6, and king e3. Knight e5, king f2.
Nah, this
like,
is...
okay, this is still unclear because the problem is knight d3. He goes king e2. Yeah, just to stop knight c1, and the same idea, you know.
Yeah,
same idea is a draw, and if you just go back, just king e3. And the problem is, your knight is just stuck a little bit because always bishop c7. You can go knight c6 maybe, bishop c7, knight d4, but now just king d3, and he gets this, and take one of the pawns. Yeah, it's a draw. It's probably a draw. All right, but king c6 was probably a little bit safer. Safer try. Okay, queen f5, ef5, bishop e3, knight g6, e6, king d6. Okay, bishop g5 was played, king e6. Actually, bishop d8 is losing by f4, gf, h4.
Oh,
but
wow.
Wait a sec. This is what we checked. Oh, come on. Don't tell me it's knight e2. Now, knight e2, bishop b6. What's the win here?
Yeah, do you need to take on f4? Just push?
Actually, I'm wait a sec. Are we? Yeah, you're right. We don't have to. But f5 check.
f5 check,
Yeah,
bishop
we have
c7,
knight
knight e5. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is...
Yeah, okay. Yeah, this is winning. This is winning. Okay, bishop d8 was losing. King d2.
So this is the game?
Yeah, this is the game. King d2. Black is on move.
Yeah, I think we can play f4 here. And if pawn takes, we play king f5. Although, maybe we can just... Hold on. I only looked at king f5 and bishop d8, but he has king e3 there.
But you probably don't have any other option. Like, I mean, if the king gets to e3 and he puts the bishop on f4, it's immediate draw.
Yeah.
So this is the plan basically. Eventually, I think he will find this. So like because he has no other choice. Like he has to find this. So yeah. Okay, f4. By the way, this was still a draw. But how it was a draw? The reason why this bishop f4 idea was so much easier because from that point, once you spot that, you can't go wrong. You cannot go wrong.
Yeah,
but here it was I mean, this was still objectively a draw, but it was impossible to find. G takes. GF, H4, King E3, H3, King F3, King F5, King G3, Knight F4, Bishop D8, Knight E2, King H3, Knight C1, or Knight D4, doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And now, how would you play with white?
Yeah. Um. I mean, I guess it's wrong to take the b6 pawn. I don't know why though. Yeah, but probably you cannot defend the b6 pawn with black. So maybe I just start bringing the king closer. Or
Yeah, that was a key. Bishop B6. Bishop Yuboyevich took on B6, and that was losing. Actually,
yeah,
it's
I mean,
actually
this
crazy.
is crazy.
So Bishop B6 was losing. Only because there is a key square. There is a key square you have to reach, and by Bishop B6 he lost a very serious tempo. So King G2 or King G3 probably doesn't matter. King G3.
Yeah.
This is, but according to table base, okay, this is still not in table base. But if we just eliminate a couple of pawns, it will be on table base already with 7 pieces. King G3, King E4, King F2, Knight B3, King E2, King D4, King D1, King C4, and King C2. This square is very important. And this is a draw. This is a draw.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I mean, probably I would resign here.
Yeah.
This is a draw. This is a draw. And I think Yuboyevich already gave up on on the game. But actually, before I analyzed this game, I had no clue that this is actually a draw. Don't ask was the draw method here, but I'm pretty sure it's so much more difficult than H and F pawn in rook endgames, which is also a draw.
Which is also quite
Also
hard
a draw,
to
but
draw.
and actually with knight against bishop, it's a draw. It's actually crazy. This is a draw. But the problem was with bishop takes, if it started with bishop b6, his knight takes b3. Didn't really matter. King g3 was also losing. King e4, king f2, king d3, king e1, king c4, king d1, and king d3 very important. This is why I said this square was important. If the king reaches this square, I mean, now black doesn't care about this guy. He will just push the pawn. He will just push the pawn all the way to c2. Actually, the key was not protecting this or not not taking this as black. The key was reaching this square on d3. From the point he took on b6, it didn't really matter. Okay, he played bishop d8, but okay, king e4, king g4, king d3, king f4, king c4, king e4. Even king b4 was winning now, but Karpov played king c3. Bishop f6, king c2. In case of king d5, it's just king d3, bishop e5, c4, king e3, c3, bishop f6, knight c5, king e2, and after king b3, he resigned.
Wow.
And just c2 and the knight d3, and it's over. Unbelievable. In case of bishop d8, there was king d1, nasty move. And in case of bishop a5, c2, bishop d2, knight b3. The bishop has no squares. In case of king d4, just knight takes a4, king c4, knight b6, king b5, and a4.
Wow.
King b4 and knight d5 check. Otherwise, king b6 just a3. So unbelievable. This endgame was actually a draw. So it was crazy. So, but everything was everything came down to this move that he pushed a4. Because whenever even later when like the Karpov exchanged the queens, he still could have access to b4 to break. But thanks to this a4 move, it was never possible. So never make these careless pawn moves in endgames, because the thing with pawn moves, I mean, you can't undo it. It's not like a knight move or a queen move. You can you can go back to the original point where like made some changes, and you can always undo it. No, the pawn moves are permanent. So, and yeah, you need to find counterplay. And a world-class player like Yuboyevich, even the best players in the world can make such principal mistakes. It's unbelievable. But this game was one of my favorite endgame by Karpov. Like, the technique was brilliant. Like, he always goes baby steps. He doesn't want to do major changes like right away. He goes baby steps, and then by that, he doesn't hurt his position, and also gives opponent chance to go wrong. Like and like this a4 move. So also by this queen b7, that he didn't go for that queen trade. You remember here after this this a4 move.
Yeah, queen b7.
He didn't go for it. It was also very clever, because first of all, he could do it anytime.
Yeah.
So even if he changes his mind, I mean, the king cannot really get closer. He can always undo it. He can always change his mind, and he can always go for the queen trade. But of course, he didn't go for it because he couldn't possibly foresee everything. So yeah. All right. By the way, I have a homework for you. Let me just put up. How can I upload a position? Are you sure you want to leave the room? No, I'm not sure. How can I? Once we have.
I have no idea.
Add games. Yeah. Set up a. No, I don't want to set up a position. Load from PGN. That's right. Okay. So I named it as homework. Yeah. Here. That's the position, and that's another endgame. Karpov Lothier. Black played e5. So your homework until next week, next week's sessions, is try to find a plan with white, and against that plan, try to find the best defense with black. And because it's unclear that the position is winning or not. Of course, white is down a pawn, but of course, white almost all the pawns are on dark squares. In the meantime, all the white pawns are light squares. And look at this terrible bishop. So actually, the fact that black is up a pawn is completely irrelevant. Find a plan with white and find the best defense with black.
Okay.
And we will start with this next time.
Okay, great. I will do that.
All right. Okay. Thanks for being here today.
Yeah,
and we will continue next week.
Great.
We'll continue next week.
Yes, thank you. Have a great stream, and see you in a week.
Thank you. Yeah. See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So thank you guys for being here with me on the stream. Yeah, so I will end streaming right now. I hope you guys had a great one. And see you guys soon. Have a great day.